I'm Steph Strickland with GeekWire Studios here at NVIDIA GTC 2026, and I want to introduce you right now to Jared Quincy Davis, the founder and CEO of Mithril. How are you doing today?
Doing well. Yeah, thanks so much for the time.
Thanks for taking the time to speak with me. I want to talk obviously about the OmniCloud market today and really what are sort of the challenges and differentiators in this segment.
Yeah, I think the core problem for customers is this market's very volatile. Things are changing constantly. Right now we're in a moment of a ton of basically constriction in the market. Things are very tight, supply is hard to come by. And so part of what we do is help connect these kind of disparate pools of compute and help create kind of one big contiguous fluid pool for users that allows them to do the work that they're trying to do. And so, I'd say it's a relatively new market, kind of a new concept that we're helping create, along with really visionary partners like Nebius. And so we're excited to be working with great partners and to be building this out.
As I was reading about your professional background and particularly your time with DeepMind at Google, I want to talk about how that experience sort of shapes the way you approach the work that you do now.
Yeah, my background is as an AI researcher, and so I think me and the team have a ton of empathy for the work that researchers are trying to do, for the challenges that they face, and it's very, very difficult to navigate infrastructure and tackle new research problems at the same time. It creates just a ton of cognitive overload, and so a lot of what we try to do is just remove that challenge for users, help them focus on their research, and let us handle some of the logistical, technical procurement challenges around infra to help them scale, help them push their agenda. So trying to make this a lot easier, trying to give every research team the type of leverage that someone like OpenAI or DeepMind has internally.
We are talking about AI in terms of its application in production processes, right? So out of curiosity, what has really changed to help accelerate that at this point?
Yeah, I think the things going on in AI today are just a continuation of a very long-standing trend. Going back 14 years now, we've been on this kind of mega trend with deep learning where we've been scaling the number of parameters, doubling every 3.4 months, 11xing every year in terms of total compute, going to every state-of-the-art system, a billion xing every decade. And we're just starting to see that bear fruit as we get kind of further and further along that trend. And so I think now we're at a point where these techniques are working really well, algorithmic improvements, scaling of compute, scaling of data, work across the ecosystem converging, and things that were kind of theoretical are really starting to work. In production, in practice, these systems are getting very good in the way that I think a lot of the visionaries of the field saw coming, but to actually see it happening is, I think, quite remarkable. And part of our job is to make sure that we can keep pushing the frontier, keep scaling. Teams with new ideas can push their agenda as well, and we don't get stopped by the frictions that arise when you get to large scale. Things get viscous when you get to large scale, and so we're trying to help make it easier for teams, both frontier teams and newer teams with ideas that could be frontier, to continue to push their agenda.
You mentioned the visionaries saw this coming. Did they also see the speed with which it's unfolding out of curiosity, or how do you view this?
Yeah, I think a lot of people would be surprised. I myself got really excited by deep learning going back to 2015 and 2016 when I saw some of the early work from DeepMind. And yeah, I think that I expected things would get good. In some ways, I expected some things to happen faster, some things to happen a lot slower. But I think no matter what, to see it happening, the exact speed being one thing, but to see it happening is quite remarkable. The systems that we have today are, I think, the things that we would have dreamed of, a decade ago. And so to actually have them in front of us, I think it's important to kind of take a step back and recognize where we're at and what this means for where we could go. It's a very, very exciting moment, and what excites me so much is to see so many new teams with new ideas for new techniques that can push the frontier even further, that can assimilate compute even more effectively. I think that's really exciting, or new modalities, new regimes to apply these techniques to. And so part of what we want to do is make sure that we can support that, AI for science, new work in physical intelligence, these new kind of agendas beyond language modeling, beyond coding, which are working remarkably well, continuing to push those while opening up new frontiers as well.
Okay, so you touched on this. We're talking AI native versus research institutions, enterprise, and even as we look beyond to the hyperscaler, something very important here to what Nebius does. My question to you is this a tension? Is this a push-pull, or is everything able to work in concert?
Yeah, I think definitely in concert. Right now we're in a period where the space is growing so fast. I think it's not zero-sum at all. There's so positive sum. We're in the early phase of AI adoption. As big as these businesses seem, as dramatic and fast as the growth of all these companies seems, we're very much in the early innings. This stuff has a lot of room left to diffuse. This stuff's going to scale way further than people I think are currently imagining. And so I think right now, the main competition is not other AI companies, it's actually just the status quo, and just inertia. And so I think everyone who's working together in this ecosystem is helping to push through that inertia, push the status quo, and kind of open up new vanguards, prove the value. And so I think we're all kind of on the same path. All of our interests are pretty aligned because there's so much room to grow, so much room to expand.
I do appreciate a good sports analogy. I want to talk about what you see for the future of the company. What do you see coming?
Yeah, a lot of really exciting things in the pipeline. One of them is we're launching a new joint product with Nebius called Flexible Reservations, where users can get a reservation in the way they're typically used to, but then they can also opt to pause instances or early terminate instances, upgrading to a new SKU, or just reclaiming, getting rebates back whenever they're not using instances when others use them. Almost like having, a solar roof that feeds energy back to the grid and gets you back, and reduces your electricity bill.
I do want to ask about Mithril and sort of the aesthetic and the branding of the company, because I would believe it runs much deeper than what I see when I first, go to your splash page. It's beautiful and futuristic, yet has some machines which would be widely considered archaic. Tell me a little bit about the design choice there and how it informs what your company does.
Yeah, I think one key theme for us as a company is this theme called tensegrity, which is kind of this notion of kind of tension or balance between extremes. I think really great things often have this property where they're simultaneously at two kind of somewhat competing extremes seemingly. I think great companies are visionary and long-term, but also have a ton of bias for action, urgency, and pragmatism in the short term. And same thing with our product. We want our product to be flexible, to be dynamic, to be easy to use and approachable, yet also very resilient, very secure, very robust at scale. And so these are things that somewhat seem, and to be in contradiction, to be in contrast, to be in opposition, but in our platform we want to harmonize them. And so I think our name, the company brand, some of the things that we do is meant to somewhat embody this principle and kind of convey this to our customers and partners.
Jared Quincy Davis, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I'm Steph Strickland. You're watching GeekWire Studios.